Okay, dear venerable brother, Dhamma friends, so we are going to start the second Dhamma sermon of this Kalalgoda English medium retreat. May you give your consent by saying sadhu sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yathocako aham bhikkave ime panchupadanakkhandhe චතුපරිවත්තං යථා භූතං අබ්බඤ්ඤාසින් අතාහම් භික්කවේ සදේවකේ ලෝකේ සමාරකේ සබ්‍රාහ්මකේ සස්සමන බ්‍රාහ්මනියා පජාය සදේව මනුස්සාය අනුත්තරං සම්මා සම්බෝධින් අபிසම්බුද්ධෝති පච්චඤ්ඤාසින්ති. Dear venerable brother, Dhamma friends, so we are actually continuing the yesterday's Dhamma sermon. Yesterday we discussed Upadana Parivatta Sutta, particularly the declaration that the Buddha is making, that till he arrive the full understanding, full comprehensive understanding with four aspects about the five clinging aggregates, he didn't declare himself as the Samma Sambuddha. And today I have used the opposite one, where he mentioned, so once I have fully understood the five clinging aggregates, යතෝචකෝ අහම් භික්ඛවේ ඉමේ පංචඋපාදානස්කන්ධේ චතුපරිවත්තං යථා භූතං අබ්බඤ්ඤාසින්. So about these five clinging aggregates, with their four characteristics or with their four respects, I understood through the direct knowledge, abbanyasing. Atahang, so now I am declaring myself among the crowd consisting of devas, maras, brahmas, and different kinds of clans in the human realm consisting Brahmana, Kshatriya, and many other folk. Among this crowd, now I am declaring myself as a Samma Sambuddha because I fully understood these clinging aggregates with these four aspects. Now, what are the four characteristics? We can say four categories. So each aggregate has these four different kinds of attributes. We are now discussing particularly the fourth one, the Sankharakkhandha. We know that there are five aggregates: Rupa Upadanakkhandha, the form clinging aggregate; Vedana Upadanakkhandha, the feeling clinging aggregate; Sanya Upadanakkhandha, say perceptions clinging aggregate; Sankhara Upadanakkhandha, formations clinging aggregate; and the fifth one, consciousness clinging aggregate, or the Vijnana Upadanakkhandha. Now, this month we were discussing about the Sankhara Upadanakkhandha. So, with respect to Sankhara Upadanakkhandha, there are four aspects. So, the first aspect is called Sankhara Abbanyasing. So, we have to have some direct knowledge about the Sankharas. And then the second one, Sankhara Samudayang Abbanyasing. So how they are formed, how they are generated, what are the causes. So that we have to fully understand. Not through a book, but by thorough investigation within our own mind, within our own body, within our own words. We need to fully understand how these Sankharas are being formed, generated. Sankhara Nirodhang Abbanyasing. So then the cessation of that. So that means we have to experience that. One has to realize that. Not that theoretical understanding, but by going through some sort of a practice. So one needs to realize the cessation of the sankharas. And then the last one, a path leading to the cessation of sankhara. Sankhara nirodhagamini patipadang abbanyasing. So that also has to be understood through the direct knowledge. So these are the four aspects one needs to understand. So yesterday we touched upon many aspects about the sankharas. So we discussed about three levels: punyabhi sankhara, apunyabhi sankhara, anenjabhi sankhara, the wholesome formations, unwholesome formations, and the anenjabhi sankhara, that means very much like unwavering, very stable type of sankharas where one acquired through the practice, some direct experiencing of jhana. So that is another level of sankharas. So that is one aspect we discussed. And then we discussed about two levels of sankhara. One is very gross bodily formations. We are doing various activities. Say running, sitting, standing, walking, playing. Many things are there. Using the body we do. So the very gross kind of bodily activities. That is also type of sankhara, what we call as the kaya sankhara. But underneath, the very basic, very fundamental sankhara is called kaya sankharo, which is essential to conduct all these bodily activities. So that is kaya sankhara is the asasa passasa, in breath and out breath, the breathing process. So that is the very fundamental bodily activity. Then the speech wise, so we can sing, we can talk, we can, what else we can do? So through the, the speech, many things that we can talk, either good things we can talk, either truth we can talk, either, the abusive way one can talk, or either peaceful way, kind of joining way, making the kind of concord we can talk. So many different ways one can, either wholesome or unwholesome way one can talk. So that is one form of or gross level of talking. But the very minimum level of that, fundamental level of that is called vaci sankharo, which is the vitakka vichara, applied mind and the sustained mind, sustained attention. So that is the very minimal level of vaci sankhara. So that's why sometimes it is said certain devas have the ability to read the mind by recognizing this vaci sankhara, vitakka vichara. Before we talk, devas can recognize because they can read the mind, this particular attribute, vitakka and vichara. Vitakketva vicharetva vacham bindati. So that's a statement available mentioning that by applying our attention and then pondering a little bit, then we talk. So before even the words come out of our mouth, so the someone who has that ability can recognize vitakka and vichara, the applied mind and the sustained attention, so that they can recognize, what's this particular person going to talk, what he's internally talking, internal chatter, kind of a talk, isn't it? Kind of a talking going on, so that they can recognize by tapping this vitakka vichara. So your mouth, or rather your thoughts, are tapped by others. So be careful. So we are worried about your phone being tapped, but unfortunately, what we are thinking is already tapped. So you don't need to think that only I am the one knows that what I am thinking. No one else would know that I am what I am thinking. But the opposite is there is no secret. So this is a very interesting statement made by the Buddha. There is no secret in this world. Even though we think, okay, what I am thinking, all dirty things I am thinking. So we think, okay, that's only very private to me. I mean, no one else would know that. But there are interesting beings who can tap our thinking. They know what we are thinking. Very interesting. So that's why even the Buddhas, what Buddha was thinking, they were tapping it. Sometimes actually there are very interesting incidents. On one occasion, Buddha was thinking why these kings are, taxing the people unreasonable way. So Mara was there. So Mara immediately appears in front of him, and he is suggesting, yes, Bhante, they are quite unreasonable. You better do you become a king. So then you can be a very righteous king. Then Buddha said, you mind your own business. So he is always there to tap him. So how about us then? Mara may not come. We are completely negligible things. Maybe an agent of him may be always with us. So anyway, so that is the vaci sankhara. Then the mano sankhara. various thoughts are there. Say we are fabricating, we are proliferating, daydreaming, fantasizing, regretting. So all these very different kinds of thinking, wholesome way of thinking, unwholesome way of thinking, many thoughts are going on. So that is a gross level, mano sankhara. But the underneath, very, say, the minimal level is called the chitta sankhara. That is called vedana and sanya. So whatever mental activity, most fundamental is the vedana and sanya, the feeling and the perception. Even the perception is more gross. We can use the signs, very little signs, marks, attributes available so that the recognition could happen. So these are another level of information we discussed. And then using the Kajjaniya Sutta we discussed. So Buddha is giving another explanation about why the term sankhara, kincha bhikkhave sankhare vadeta, why amongst it is called sankhara. Sankatang abhisankharonti iti bhikkhave tasma sankharati uchati. So whenever something conditioned is available, something already conditioned, they have generated due to various causes, conditions. It's already conditioned. Now, when we start dealing with that, we do some additional conditioning on top of that. As we discussed during the Dhamma discussion, say you see a little bit of image, but you can't simply keep it as a mere image. On top of that image, you have your own desires, your own likes, your own dislikes, your own prejudices. And now you start thinking around that particular image. Whenever we hear a sound, we can't simply let it go and mind our own business. So we want to add our own likes, dislikes, coloring, conditioning, our own ideas. Many things are there. Same thing to the sounds, smells, taste, tangibles, and even to the thought. So we do some additional fabrications within our mind. So that is the main function of the sankhara skandha, sankatang abhisankharonti. And we do some additional formations. We do some additional fabrications. We do purposeful preparations, even unknowingly very much like. So, as a result of that, we suffer. So, there are three categories of suffering. Probably you have heard about dukkha dukkha, viparinama dukkha, and sankhara dukkha. Dukkha dukkha, very fundamental, unavoidable kind of suffering. Say we become sick, we become old. So, unavoidable. I mean, we have to go through certain amount of suffering. The bodily sickness, bodily suffering is there. Aging is suffering. So that is the very natural kind of suffering is there. But on top of that bodily suffering, we might add our own part, mental suffering part. We probably could add. But the practitioner, his purpose, his duty is to minimize that part. So on top of, in that sense, the dukkha dukkha, we add our own sankhara dukkha also, probably. Then the viparinama dukkha, things are changing, but you want to keep without change. So you want the government to handle things properly. Even now we are just discussing with my friend, still not good, according to him. So viparinama dukkha. So things are changing, but not the way we want, not favorable to us. And we expect our, say, loved ones to behave in a particular way, but they behave in a different way. And we want a kind of a process to happen in a particular way, in a particular fashion, but it happens in a different way. So the viparinama dukkha, the dukkha, the suffering happens because of the change. So that also very much like unavoidable, things are changing, under constant changing. You can't stop. As a result of that, we can suffer because we don't understand that, or we don't understand properly the impermanent nature, the suffering nature, non-self nature. As a result of that, we can suffer. But the understanding may help us to reduce that. So what is the third suffering? The sankhara dukkha. So that is the actually more relevant to today's topic. So we have some another suffering, type of suffering, because of our additional construction, our additional fabrication, our participation into the ongoing process. We don't mind our own business, rather we interrupt the process. We participate in the process. We want to change the process. You want to change the system. Change the system? Recent? Remember? You want to change the system. Fabrication, maybe. So every time, so whenever a thought happens, we can't simply let it go. You want to think. Whenever a simple image happens as a mental image, you can't simply let it go. So you do some fabrication. So what happens as a result of that? So thinking starts, right? Sanya nidana hipapancha sankha. So whenever a little bit of an image appear in the mind, a little bit of thought construct appear in the mind, or say a sound appear in the mind, in terms of the image, in terms of the very minimal level of sign, we can't stop there. We do our own additions, subtractions, multiplications, weaving part we do. Ultimately it becomes multiplied, and ultimately we participate in that dialogue. Sometimes I am talking to myself then. There is no one in front of, but I am, talking to myself even. You have seen that certain people, they talk to themselves. So fabrications are going on, thinking is going on, proliferation is going on. Now they can't even stop. So the overthinking completely comes under this category, what we call the sankhara dukkha. The conceptual proliferations, all the things what we think are based upon concepts. So concepts play a big role. Now, is it a concept or a reality? A clock. So now you are thinking. So that means it's a concept. Because around the reality we can't think. So all the concepts are generating more and more thinking. So there are two sides into that. So papancha sanya sankha and papancha. The papancha is the dynamic side, where our mind has the prolific tendency. So we can't stop thinking. I have the tendency to think. I am geared to think. A kind of a dynamic process is inbuilt within us. So we are tempted to think, isn't it? Or you want to be silent? Is it your temptation? Every time when someone is talking, you want to be silent? Whenever some incident happens, you want to be silent? Or you want to participate, you want to think, I want to say my idea, I want to put my idea. What's that? Freedom of thinking, freedom of talking. So many things, right? So we are fighting for the rights, so that I have the right to think, I have the right to talk, put my own ideas as a citizen. So every time we are tempted to think, we are tempted to react. So that is a kind of a process ongoing within us, kind of a dynamic process going on within us. So it will lead to more and more thinking, obsessive thinking, overthinking, conceptual proliferation. That is one side, the dynamic side. The other side is a static side. Now, this clock. Now, this is a product of conceptual proliferation. Do you agree? This product is a product of conceptual proliferation of many people maybe. Say someone has designed, so he want to have a alarm clock, he want to have a wristwatch, or he want to have a hanging clock. So the colors he want to give, the name, the brand name they have to give, how the shape they have to give. So all these things we need to think, right? We need to design. So someone is engineering it, preparing it. Still the product is not prepared. Assume. Now say you want to build a house. Where are you first building your house? In your mind. Very much like, say, maybe the garden should like this. The veranda should like this. I have to have at least 4 rooms. Maybe how about the upper floor? Maybe a balcony? A rail? Something beautiful? So what is the type of wood I am going to use? Are you going to have a metal roof or... So you are doing a lot of imaginations, right? Then you tell it to an architect and he or she also think. So ultimately the few masons and all blah blah all together, and you take a bank loan. So they are also thinking whether to give you the proper bank loan. Is this fellow is a genuine person, or is it really possible to pay it off? So they also think now. Somehow assume that you build a house. So house is a product of conceptual proliferation. So all the concepts, papancha sanya sankha, so they have the potential to generate thinking in another person. So they have, in a way, in the static properties they are thought-provoking, isn't it? So all the things human made are thought-provoking. So that, say advertisement. The sole purpose is thought-provoking, right? So why they are using some, beautiful girls in an advertisement? So maybe they are advertising maybe a tire. Maybe a bicycle tire or car tire. But a little half-naked woman is there just beside that. So why? Thought-provoking. So they may look at it. So, this is how they are using our internal, the human bad natures in a way. They are misusing in a way so that we are thinking. Our minds are conditioning. So we are being used in that sense. So the advertisers know these bad instincts, our temptations. So they are using all different methods to attract our attention so that we start thinking. So next time you go to the tire house, so that product now you are looking for, where is that? So all that means whatever we are constructing, whatever we make, all different kinds of products, so they add another attribute to that so that whatever another person, a customer sees it, so that it will get attracted. So they tempted to buy that. Not only that, whatever we make are thought-provoking. So all the products, man-made products, whatever available in the conditioned realm, all are thought-provoking concepts. What in Pali called as papancha sanya sankha. The concepts. Concepts have the potential to generate conceptual thinking, conceptual proliferation. So the conceptual proliferation is the papancha. And in order to generate that conceptual proliferation, many concepts are there, man-made words, names, labels, ideas, already prepared, this and that, immense amount of it are there. So they have the potential, the capacity to thought-provoke. Very complicated in a way. We are entangled, completely entangled. So we are, in a way, complicating the whole system. We ourselves get entangled. So I am thinking, ultimately my whole thinking is make use of me, and it consumes me. Isn't it? So our own thoughts, our own way of thinking, obsessive thinking, ultimately consume me. So you become depressed, or you become anxious. So why these many names are there as the mental disorders? Isn't it, Tim? So many names are there, say depression, anxiety, PTSD, Many names are there. So all these, if you see the very fundamental artifacts, so that is the conceptual proliferation. So conceptual proliferation makes a big role. So Buddha highlights this in many suttas. I use one sutta here called Yavakalapi Sutta. So there Buddha mentioned Papanchitam bhikkhave rogo. Conceptual proliferation is a disease. Papanchitam bhikkhave gandu is a tumor. Papanchitam bhikkhave sallang, it's a dart. You can see, this conceptual proliferation, Buddha looks at like a disease in us. So he sees it as a tumor. Are you familiar with tumor? Cancer? You can see the gravity of that. You can see the danger of that. So Buddha is putting the conceptual proliferation to that level. Conceptual proliferation is seen as a tumor. But we are delighting in thinking, no? We are delighting in proliferation, no? So what are we doing? In a way, we are promoting a disease in us. So nowadays, people are too much thinking. Now, maybe in the good old days, people are with some simple lifestyles. They don't have much to think. Now, how many things are there for today to think? Many things are there. Our lives are quite complicated, bound to various areas, many responsibilities, many liabilities. As we just discussed, how are you making a house? Today, how are you going to make a house? Say 2000 years ago, how a person is building a house? Quite different, isn't it? Say 2000 years ago, maybe he used some coconut leaves and put some, katumati, I don't know the English term, and they build a house for very simple way of living. Quite comfortable also, very simple. But today, how are you making a house? As we discussed, very tedious, complicated process. Many people are involved, and till the death, you are paying the debt. To a bank, to another person, to the architect, to the carpenter, to the mason. So you have to pay off because you borrowed from someone else. So many things are there, very complicated. So many things are there to think for you because you made a house. Now it's a liability. You need to pay it off to the bank, pay it off to the workers, and your children are waiting, using the house now. Wife is telling, okay, you need to attach another bathroom. She's suggesting something more. So you have to take care of her also. Now more thinking. Very complicated. Now that's why today's world is very complicated because we are too much thinking. Thinking has made the huge kind of a confusion ultimately. And end up with wars, conflicts within, starting with the very basic. Internally now you have a confusion. Internally you are in a turmoil. You are in a depressive mood. Or you want to take revenge. Now you take revenge from your wife, your husband, your children, your neighbors, or you are conflicting with the others within a village, within a country, among the countries. To what extent it is growing. So that's why Papancha has a great impact to the whole world. Internally we start as a kind of a overthinking, and I become a victim of that very thinking. Then I am propagating that to my loved ones, what I am associating. Now they also now getting involved, too much talking, too much thinking, designing, planning. And now we prepare this and that, and ultimately the whole world in utter confusion. Real turmoil, real war situation. So if you refer Madhupindika Sutta, so Buddha tell this. He mentioned this. So how this simple process ultimately lead to whole kind of a mass of suffering. Not only to yourself, to the other whole living beings. Now say you are a president of a country. So if you are overthinking, Ultimately, you are in a real agitated state. So how much it's going to have an impact on the others? So do you think the today's world leaders are arahants? So how are they thinking? How are they taking decisions? So what are the concluding remarks or concluding factors? How are their decisions are made up with? So likewise, it's a very dangerous situation in that sense. So we are in such a society. Now that is in a way a very gross level. But internally, Buddha say very minimal level of thinking. Asmiti bhikkhave papanchita metang. Even the subtle thought, I am so and so. I am Venerable Chandaratana. Papanchita metang. Papancha. Conceptual proliferation. So name is a papancha, right? Name is a concept. So now I am recognizing myself as so and so. I am combining these two together. Think there is an I here, a person here. I am so and so. I am is a conceptual proliferation. Asmiti bhikkhave papanchita metang. Ayang ahang asmiti papanchita metang. So that means I am this. So say you have a group photo. Here I am. So whatever the figure available, whatever the image available, now immediately you attribute that to yourself. I am that. I am there. You see, I am there. So this is my house. That is my children. That is my wife. This is my college. My college is better than your college. This is my university. Don't talk about that. So I am from that university. Your university is not a big university. So I am that. I am from that. So I associate that. Papanchita metang. So Buddha says it's a papancha. Conceptual proliferation. So internally, so you can see, so what is there to think then? What won't be the papancha? Now can you think without making it a papancha? Now say, when Buddha is telling, I am is a papancha. I am this is a papancha. I am that is a papancha. And then he say, bhavissanti papanchita metang. I am going to do this. I am going to become that papancha. Na bhavissanti. I am not going to do that. I am not going to live 100 years. Another papancha. So what is your plan after death? A papancha. That very thing, that very thought is a papancha. So don't you have plans for the future? So you can think, no, I mean the next life. How are you planning now? Some people are asking, Bhante, how to handle this chutisita? It's a very common question. So they are papancha. Then rupi bhavissanti papanchita metang. So I am going to be like this, I am going to be like this. Today I am not good, beautiful enough. So I need to, change my figure. I need to color my hair. I need to have this hair fashion or whatever it is. So you are making yourself beautiful and this way, that way. So Buddha say, rupi bhavissanti papanchita metang. It's a proliferation. Arupi bhavissanti papanchita metang. So you are the opposite. So I am practicing this or that and I am changing the opposite. That also, these are thinking. So continuous different way of thinking. But conceptual proliferations. Then sanyi bhavissanti papanchita metang. So this is the way that I am going to say sanyi bhavissanti. I am going to work out, I am going to plan, I am going to think. This way I am going to react. So many ways of thinking. Na sanyi bhavissanti. So I am not going to do like this, I am going to do like this. So many different ways of thinking. Neva sanyi, na sanyi bhavissanti. So very subtle way of thinking. So that's why, when it comes to that level, it's almost like we can't think. So that's a very interesting situation happened to Venerable Aniruddha. You know, before his fully enlightenment, so he had a very interesting thoughts, quite wholesome and very important kind of thoughts. And he thought, so this whole Dhamma, you mean the Buddha's dispensation, is for a person who more intends towards apicchata, having little. He has less desires. For the person who is with many desires, you know, that many desires, the Dhamma is not for that person, but the person who is appreciating the apicchata, appreciating having little, few things. So the Dhamma is for that person. So that is one thing. The Dhamma is for a person who is contented with what he has. Santuttita. Santuttassayan Dhammo, nayan Dhammo, asantuttassa. The person who is quite contented, but not with completely, you know, restless and overwhelmed by various desires. Dhamma is not for him, but for a person who is contented. And Dhamma is for one who is more energetic, not for a lazy person. Dhamma is for one who is mindful, not for a person who is completely unmindful. Then Dhamma is for one who has a fairly concentrated mind, a fairly collected mind, not with a person for a distracted mind, scattered mind. Then Dhamma is for a person who prefers seclusion, not for the person who prefer more into the socializing. So the person who is more secluded, he likes to be alone. Dhamma is for such person. And Dhamma is for a wise person, not for a, you know, a kind of a foolish person. So all these things are quite valid, isn't it? From a deep sense, so he has understood that this Buddha's teaching is aimed for this category of people. Fewness of desires, apicchata, and who is quite contented, santuttita, who is effortful, who is diligent or mindful, and who prefers being alone, kind of seclusion, and who is quite wise. So now he is thinking these things. Good, right? I mean, very good stuff. So fortunately now Buddha recognized Venerable Aniruddha. Now he is with these Mahapurisa Vitakka. So they are named as Mahapurisa Vitakka. Thoughts of a great man. Now Buddha immediately appeared in front of him. So he has added, so he actually made a comment. Good, Venerable Aniruddha. So your thoughts are quite valid. So he also affirmed that, confirmed that. Okay, you better add this 8th one. So he is adding the 8th one. So what is the 8th one? Nippapancharamasayang dhammo, nayan dhammo, papancharamasa papancharatino. This dhamma is for a person who likes, who loves nippapancha, not for the person who loves papancha. So now, start Venerable Aniruddha thought about that. Now Buddha wants him to think about that, no? So how long he can think now? He can't think now. So because it promotes non-proliferation. Stop thinking. Calm down, relax. So papancha. So the Dhamma is for the person who loves nippapancha. Calming down proliferation. Removing the proliferation. Abandoning the proliferation so that you maintain nippapancha. Nippapancha is a synonym for nibbana. So you can see the gravity of that. Nippapancha is a synonym for nibbana. So the Dhamma is for a person who loves nippapancha, not for a person who loves papancha. So the moment that Venerable Aniruddha understood that, he started quieting down, calming down, making himself silent. Maybe he has gone through further practice and he attained arahantship. And later he actually praised the Buddha So while I was thinking all these hard, very important kind of thoughts, Buddha came and introduced this 8th Mahapurisa Vitakka, that is onto the non-proliferation. As a result of practicing that, I attained full enlightenment. So such important. So the Sankhara Samatha, calming down at least the thinking, utterly important. So Vipassana yogi, so if he not yet started minimizing thinking, abandoning unnecessary thinking, so that means not yet understood the path of Vipassana. So we need to look at ourselves. So am I still thinking too much? After practicing several years, am I still thinking too much? Am I still regretting about what has happened? Am I still having many grievances? Am I still planning too ahead, many years ahead? Am I still planning my future life? Am I still regretting about what has happened many years ago? We need to reflect. So the Dhamma is for a person who prefers Nippapancha. Now we need to go complete opposite way of our own tendencies. So our latent tendency is to prapancha, to think too much. Every time you get a time, you start thinking. That is how this system is made up with. You know, now through the science, they have come up with some brain activity called DMN. Some of you may know that. Default Mode Network. So when mind doesn't have a proper objective, when it is in the idle mode, so it is tempted to think this way, that way, the papancha. So the real meaning of papancha is kind of multidirectional, unorganized thinking. Say you have given a particular task. Maybe you can plan, you can think about in that line, right? So you have a particularly selected area. For that you can pay more attention to that. You are concerned about that. Selectively you are thinking. You are in a way quite guided. Good. But the function of the DMN is quite opposite. When you don't have such kind of a proper objective, when the mind is not given a proper task, so our tendency is to this way, that way, complete vulnerable kind of thinking. So that distracted mind is an unhappy mind. So that what you call that overthinking mind is always an unhappy mind. So our system is made up like that. Our human nature internally made up like that. So we have to go the opposite direction now. So we need to understand this kind of a tendency is there within me. The moment there is no proper direction, when there is no proper guidance given to the mind, it has a tendency to go this way, that way, kind of astray, going this way, that way. That's why you can understand now what's the importance of a primary object. It becomes a refuge for the person. Say you are practicing Anapanasati. So again and again you have a task. Whenever mind proliferate, whenever mind get distract, so your task is to come back to breath. That is your task, that's the assignment. Kind of a direction is made, direction is given. Later, suppose now you are developing, you develop Sila Samadhi Panya, so what happened through the Sila in that sense? So you are minimizing most say dangerous or disadvantageous, harmful bodily activities. You are minimizing harmful verbal activities, isn't it? So that is the Sila. Because we are tempted to do those. We are tempted to kill, we are tempted to steal, we are tempted to involve in sexual misconduct, use maybe intoxicants. We have a kind of inner temptation. So the Sila helps us to reduce that, minimize that. Add a constraint. Don't do that. So you are restraining yourself. But internally, still the urge is there, need is there. But you can't do it because there's a boundary. A sila boundary is there. So you have to abide by that boundary. Then the verbal. So the certain constraints, restrainments. You can't lie. You can't use some abusive language. You can't use some divisive language. You can't involve it complete chattering. So kind of a restrainment is necessary because still mind wants it. But you can't do it because now you are trying to abide by this restrainment. Sila. The gross level of defilements as a result of that are fairly reduced. And the bodily sankharas, unwholesome sankharas, verbal, unwholesome sankharas are fairly subsided because of that. But still the mind is not restrained. So what is the solution for the mind? Okay, you can practice some concentration practice, samatha meditation even, so that you are binding the mind to a particular object. Say you are using anapanasati, for example. Again and again you are bringing it to that particular object. So the moment it becomes calm, relaxed, bound to that, so no wavering, no distraction. So your mind is fairly attached to that. In one sense, so you are one-pointed now, no distractions. So hindrances are almost subsided. No sensual desire, no ill will, and you are fully awake. No restlessness, no regrets, and no doubt. All the hindrances are abandoned. So the mind is concentrated. Everything fine? Not yet. Still the tendencies are there. Right? So you can be happy till the concentration is available. The moment you open your eyes, again the fellow start thinking. So now we need another solution, that is the Panya Sikha. So the kind of a systematic Vipassana is necessary to address the latent issues, hidden issues, tendencies in the mind. A long process. So we need to understand our own habits. What am I doing? What am I thinking? So that skill that we need to develop to do a kind of a reflection, introspection, time to time, step back and see, what am I thinking? Is it really necessary to think? So when it comes to Chittanupassana, so you are developing a kind of a skill. So without participating into thinking, now you have the capacity to look at thinking. So what are the type of thoughts going on? It's a lustful thought going on. Now it is not that you are thinking. It's a lustful thought. It's not a angry thought. Rather, it's an angry thought, not that you are angry. So you do a kind of a separation. Now you have that capacity. Like I always say there is a procession going on. Now you are becoming simple spectator. Assume a drama being played, but you are not on the stage, but you are in the audience now. So we have to come to the audience now. So thoughts are going on, but you watch the thoughts. So immediately we can't come to this level. So that's why we are developing the necessary skills so that we can do this. Say through Kaya Anupassana, so we are developing that skill. So how we allow body to breathe and how we can watch. How we allow the body to walk, how we can watch. So you can see, these are very fundamental skills that we need to have. So we are developing kind of a monitoring process within us. So when we are developing mindfulness, so one important benefit is that kind of a self-monitoring process is now being developed. So always kind of a monitoring process is going on. He is like a Kalyana Mitra. He is now guiding you. He is telling you, okay, don't think like that. It's not a good thing to do. Don't talk like that. It's not appropriate to talk like that. So your inner conscience start becoming activated. And there is someone like guiding you. Not that your father, not that your mother, your wife or husband, but your own developed internal spiritual qualities are now guiding you. We are giving an opportunity for that. So that self-monitoring process is very, very important. So we have to become quite humble to that. We have to acknowledge that. There is no one coming and, threatening us, but our own inner conscience, own inner wisdom is now have a chance to come to forward and guide us. And tell us, okay, this is a wholesome activity, okay, you can continue. This is not an wholesome activity, don't do it. Now there's an internal guidance initiated. Mindfulness has come forefront. So now it's telling. So that's why Buddha mentioned. So when mindfulness has given that proper recognition, Sati dovariko bhikkhave ariya savako, savajjam pajahati anavajjam bhaveti. So it starts a kind of a purification process. Kind of a internal mental purification process is now ignited. So now you can't do the previous all bad deeds. You can't now use the previous abusive language. You can't allow your mind to proliferate too much because you understand its gravity. That mindfulness time to time come and interrupt you and tell, okay, don't do that. You're again going to destroy yourself. So now we need to admit that. We need to become humble. We need to accept that. Then slowly, when this purification become more and more strengthened, so the proliferation has to reduce. So that's why, say for example, several years ago, when you are walking, assume that there's a distraction happen. Say for example, 10 minutes you are completely distracted. How about today? Is it the same or more than that? So today, say you are walking, distraction happen. How long are you being fully distracted? How quickly are you able to come back? The moment, when are you going to recognize that distraction? Or even when distracted, are you mindful? So we need to understand. So the time period that we are completely distracted has to become less and less. And very quickly we have to be awake. We should know what's really going on. So whatever thoughts arising has to happen within our supervision. So previously we don't have that much of capacity. Previously mind simply think. Mara is the one taking the upper hand. Many thoughts are going on. I am a poor slave to that thinking. But the practice has to change to the opposite, where you know what the mind is thinking. And you have to decide whether it is useful way of thinking or is it a completely harmful way of thinking. And you should have the capacity to stop if it is harmful way of thinking. So, say for example, when you are practicing Chittanupassana, so if we are practicing like that in the proper way, then the thinking has to become less and less. Thinking has to become more and more weakened. And time to time, probably you might understand, okay, there are not complete thoughts. Maybe parts of thoughts are coming. They are not coming to their completion. Have you noticed that? Previously, they are like, generations. You are coming to one thought, another complete thought, like streams of thoughts. But now, as a result of Chittanupassana, probably you might have noticed, okay, even the first thought didn't come to the completion. Part of thought, fraction of thought. When I am awake, it has gone. Another thought comes, I am awake, it has gone. Now parts of thoughts are there. Now it's not coming to the completion. Now ultimately there may be a situation, a part of thought came, it gone, no thought. Are you going to invite a thought? No thought, absence of thoughts. So you might come to a different kind of an experience, a thoughtless moment. Mind can stay in a thoughtless level, thoughtless state. Thoughts are not a must for the mind to continue. Is thinking a must? So a completely different paradigm now we are exploring. Thoughts without a thinker. Sometimes useless thoughts are there, but I am not the thinker. I don't participate in that. I simply ignore them. They are not my thoughts. Thoughts Without a Thinker is a book from, what's his name? Mark Epstein. An interesting book. I haven't read it, but I heard about it. So the Western psychology is moving towards the Buddhist way in a way. Interesting. So there may be a situation that you are fully awake, fully aware, but no thoughts. As we discussed yesterday, say while you are enjoying a scenery, say while you are enjoying a beautiful waterfall, is it really necessary to think? We don't need. Just enjoy. Venerable Mahakassapa is the foremost in the Dhutangas, foremost in all the austere practices. He very humbly admit in Theragatha, I really enjoy seeing the fireflies, they beautifully flying in the night sky. Arhants. Not mere Arhants, the great Arhants. So they enjoyed the life, they enjoyed the environment, the beauty, but no proliferation. So one important aspect of an Arahant is non-proliferation. Papanchabirata paja nippapancha tathagata. Nippapancha tathagata. So the thoughts can happen in an Arahant, but it never goes to the level of papancha. That's essential attribute of an Arahant. Nippapancha tathagata. So that's why in the Dhatovibhanga Sutta, it is very much like summarized. When the Arahant is completely subsiding all the conceiving, the conceiving is even more primitive like. Conceiving. You are thinking very primitive way. Even that conceiving is subsided. That is the utter peaceful state of an Arahant. Sabba manyitananteva samatikkamo munisantoti vucchati. When all the conceiving is stopped, ceased, at that moment an Arahant is called utterly peaceful. So that is the direction towards the Nibbana. So that's why the term Nippapancha is a synonym for Nibbana. So we need to reflect in ourselves. So is this practice helping me to reduce thinking? Or am I still too much thinking? Didn't I understand the importance of minimize of thinking? Didn't I really tasted that peace? Didn't I yet enjoyed the silence, inner silence? So this inner silence is a very important aspect that we need to cultivate. The most of the time what happens is when the mind becomes silent, we become agitated. We can't bear it. Because I am geared to do something. I am geared to think. I am geared to talk. But internally silence, can't bear it. I become agitated. So the capacity we have to enjoy inner silence is something that we need to develop. It may not happen immediately. So there are certain suttas where it is mentioned, even though the mind is not grasping, but there could be an agitation in the mind till we have sakkaya ditthi, till we have the, the personality view. Because we want something to grasp. We are used to grasp something. The moment everything is given up, we become frightened. So we start thinking, we become agitated. Sakkaya Ditthi is pulling us back to the thinking, back to frightening, back to anxiety, agitation. The moment that the Sakkaya Ditthi is abandoned, there is no one to protect. So the mind has given up all the grasping, no clinging at all, and the mind is silent, not doing anything, utterly peaceful, no agitation. So likewise, even though the grasping is not available, there could be a possibility till we are able to overcome, to remove Sakkaya Ditthi, there could be a possibility still the agitation is possible. But the more and more the practice leads to recognize Sakkaya Ditthi, the personality view, and abandon that, and slowly assume that it is completely removed, then probably one day we may be able to enjoy that complete silence, inner silence, with nothing in the world, nothing in the mind, in the sense nothing grasped in the world, nothing associated in the mind. Anissitocha vihirati nachikinchi loke upaditi. So nothing is associated, nothing is grasped in the world. Mind has come to stillness, calmness, tranquility. Maybe temporary. Still the latent tendencies are there. But even that temporary calmness, temporary happiness, temporary nibbana, tadanga nibbhuti, still very, very important. So when we are enjoying that, so then probably we can say, okay, now one has found the path. Now one has attained the path. It's a matter of maximizing it. It's a matter of cultivating that, prolonging that, living that, abide by that. Okay, I think that's enough. So with that note, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening. So today, sharing of merits. Today, breakfast dana was offered by Ramya Diyabalanage to invoke blessings to Hasindu, the son and his wife Vidisha Asangi, for a happy future and good health, and wish Bante good health, maybe Prapancha, and also to wish that he will attain supreme bliss of Nibbana for me. May the merit also help all the yogis at meditation center to progress in their Dhamma path towards liberation. And today lunch dana was offered by Anushka Patirana to bless her family. So the first name is not clear. Patirana is clear, by the way. Okay, today also we have spent fair amount of time in our own practice and participating in a Dhamma discussion and listening to a Dhamma sermon. So all the good aspirations we have had, maybe accrued lot of merits. So all the merits that we have accrued, we share with all celestial beings, all the past relatives, and whoever in need of merits. And we wish these merits help us also to attain path fruition Nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our mind, let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavata amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mam parang. ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමි සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා සාදු සාදු සාදු